Welcome to Fiber MB, a podcast highlighting non-binary fiber artists in a world that primarily thinks of fiber arts as feminine crafts and always seems happy when there are men in it, but forget about the non-binary individuals. Today on our podcast, I am interviewing Kaywinnet. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, it's lovely to be here. So Kaywinnet's actually my last name.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot, so it's okay.
That's right. Obviously, you put Catherine. I'm sorry. I hit your Instagram tab first.
Oh, no, it's all good.
Besides, Kaywinnet at least is like that's a cool name.
Thank you. Thank you. It's actually the my partner and I chose that as our last name, but it's actually the first name of Haley from Firefly.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I just took
Yeah.
my husband's because it sounded cooler than mine.
There you go. Yeah, neither of us were attached to ours, so we decided we just get our own with again the like identity recognizing ourselves in a fictional thing and decided that's what we wanted to do.
I feel that greatly because I mean my first name is Imriel and it's stolen from a book series.
There you go. Yeah.
So just gonna start with a few different demographic questions. So first, what are the pronouns that you use?
I use she and they pronouns. Either is equally fine.
And what is your age?
I just turned 32.
What gender identity do you have?
So I identify as a non-binary woman.
And tell me, what is your fiber art of choice?
My fiber art of choice is currently anything needlepoint. So cross stitch I've been doing for about 14 years, and embroidery I've been doing for about one.
That's kind of how I did too, going from cross stitch to embroidery. But I know a lot of people get like set in one or the other.
Yeah, yeah. It's very easy to get set in one. I mean, I just stuck with cross stitch for a long, long time and then realized, hey, there's some things I want to do that embroidery really is just much better suited for. It's kind of like knitting and crochet. Usually people pick one or the other, but I was like, I'm gonna go for it.
The same thing. I really like that cross stitch is much easier to me, at least to get started. Like getting pattern on fabric seems to be
Mm-hmm.
easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then embroider is just like, wow, look at the look of that. I can't replicate that in cross stitch.
Right. No, it's 100%. I always refer to cross stitch as sort of a color by number or like a fill in the blank type deal. And then with embroidery, it's pretty much just like choose your own adventure and you can do literally whatever you want. So it can often be a little daunting to just jump into that, but it's very rewarding in its own right, and it's got a lot of different creative things it pulls around in my brain.
Definitely. I feel very similarly. Like when people are upset that there's going to be a large chunk of color in cross stitch, I'm just like, this is great. I don't have to think about it. I just keep going.
Exactly. That's what I'm doing. My problem is I can either put that aside and do it when I'm multitasking, or I just get bored with one chunk of color and I have to switch it up.
That's fair. One chunk of color is really good when you just want to sit down and watch TV, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I have a piece I'm working on where I'm literally outlining it. I'm outlining the borders of what I'm filling in one color of, and then I'm gonna go back and watch TV and just fill in the one color, not have to think about it.
Yeah, that's usually what I like to do if I can. So tell me, when did you first begin, or how long have you been doing your arts?
So cross stitch I've been doing about 14 years. I picked it up right after I started college in like 2011 or 12. I had previously been knitting starting in like junior and senior year in high school as a way to sort of keep my hands busy during otherwise quiet periods. But I picked it up in college because I felt that it would be a lot more freeing in terms of what I could do and the skills I could learn. Because in knitting, I can make scarves and flat things, and that's it. But with cross stitch, I'm like I can wear it, I can put it on the wall, I can hang it, I can make it 3D, like whatever I want to do.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When I did crochet, I mostly like I started with 3D objects, and when I started trying to make like flat things, I was really bad at finding the last stitch, so I was constantly losing a stitch and
Yeah.
like leaning in.
Yeah, it's so much easier to stop and start in cross stitch as long as you're somewhat aware of what you're doing. But I found with knitting, I would end up getting hyper focused purely because I couldn't put it down without fear of losing it all.
Oh, that's fair, especially like you worry about all your stitches slipping off the end if you don't have any
Mm-hmm.
caps or anything for your needles.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how did you start? Like, who taught you? Did you learn through a video, book?
So I'm actually self-taught. No one in my family did anything fiber arts at all, except for me. I'm the oldest. So I taught myself through a mixture of books. I did use YouTube a little bit. I'm left-handed, which is a lot harder to learn knitting left-handed than it is cross stitch. So that's another reason why I switched, was just finding tutorials was a lot easier. Yeah, just kind of a combination of look it up, look at the pictures, and if I can't figure it out, I'll find a video of someone doing the technique and talking about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I've heard a lot of people who learn how to knit end up mirror knitting if they're left-handed because of like not being able to find left-handed options to knit in videos.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That was definitely one of the trickiest parts for me is getting a book and everyone's right-handed in the book and I'm like, okay, how do I reverse engineer this? And so half my time was just trying to figure out what they're doing but backwards.
Yeah, so you're basically just like not actually doing the thing, you're just kind of
Yeah,
stumbling your way
it's not
into
fun
it.
anymore. Yeah, exactly. So
So, what's your favorite thing about the media that you've chosen?
So my favorite thing is honestly the level of creative I can be, because so many different people have patterns out there that I can like look through and pick from. So I like just being able to explore all the different art styles from like more modern to more like your grandma's classical style sand blur on the wall to jewelry that I make that's cross stitched. But I also like the like wide variety of like I can pick the colors, I can pick the background, I can pick the frame, all of that, just being able to decide what I want to do. And then I can make something complex, I can make something really simple. So I just like being able to juggle that. And then I think it's sort of a two-prong answer. That's the first half. The other half is that I can really put my own personality into things, whether I'm making it just completely on my own or working off a pattern that I like. But a lot of what I do is like there's some feminist art, there's like anti-capitalist art, and then there's art that just speaks to me as a creative as well as like pride art or stuff like that. So I can really just put my personality into the stuff that I make as well. So I've really enjoyed those are my two favorite things, just the creativity and the being able to give it that personal touch. It feels like me when I make it.
That's fair. Yeah, because in the simpler patterns, you don't always have to follow the color scheme, so you can adapt it to
Hmm.
like the recipient or where you're planning to hang it, like if you want to
Yeah.
color theme your room or something.
Yeah, I have a piece that I really enjoy that I'm keeping on my wall right now. And it's part of a larger piece that I bought a pattern for and it's like some snails with some bubbles. But I really wanted purple and blue snails. So instead of like brown with a tan shell or whatever, I'll have like purple snails in purple gradient and with like a blue gradient shell. It's just really good. It makes me very happy.
I am very here for these colors. I'm very much a jewel tone person, but I've noticed that I lean very strongly towards the green, blue, purple side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no. Having a couple hundred colors to pick from, it's nice. Yeah.
purple hair.
Mine was blue and then I had to dye it back because my job was like not happy about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't had natural hair in like 13 years now. So,
Oh, I'm jealous. I mean, my job lets me stitch when I'm slow. Like when there's nothing going on, I can do art. So, it's a trade-off.
yeah, that's definitely an upside is when you're able to like fill your slow time as opposed to have to just wait around.
Hmm.
So which of the topics that you mentioned do you think is probably your favorite? Like pride, feminism, granny sampler?
It's hard to pick. I would say I've really enjoyed the most making the pride pieces because I've had so many different pride flags, different combinations of things where people are asking me to do something that is like personal for them as well. So I think I like that the most just because of the like engagement I get with people when I'm tabling or they're looking to get something made for them. It's really hard to pick a favorite though. It's like as someone who never wants kids, it's like picking a favorite child. But yeah, I would say the pride art is probably the stuff that I have the most fun with.
Yeah, I really enjoy trying to match all those colors. And I did have a somewhat local, depends on if you consider an hour's drive local. But like, yeah, I had a cross stitch artist friend who lived local and we both did pride stuff. So trying to compare colors and see which ones were which. But then my friend also has like some color blindness.
Yeah, there's so many hues to pick from, so I have to really be mindful of when I pick colors and that I write them down or something because there's just so many shades of, Roy G. Biv you can go through. So that's a lot of fun too. It's just like playing with what works, make it more subtle or make it really pop.
Yeah, and making sure that those colors like go well together, like they have the right hue and
The
tone
hue and
so that
tone. Yeah,
yeah, all the fancy science stuff behind color.
exactly. I'm like, does it look good? Okay, cool. I'm happy with that.
I saw that you have some really cute little square pride flag earrings too on your Instagram.
hmm
I imagine those have to be really popular because they are
They
so
are.
cute.
Yeah, especially in like June, July, that's when all the Pride stuff gets the most hits anyway. Like I have some earrings for sale at a local feminist bookstore, and I always notice in June and July the sales for the earrings go way, way up compared to any other month. But those are so much fun because it's just I get people going, "Oh, hey, I like your earrings." I'm like, "Thanks, I made them." And then I get people who are like, "I like your earrings." I'm like, "Yeah, you know." So it's just that extra little bit of recognition of like, yeah, I made this, but also it represents more than just something I made. And so having those earrings, I started making them probably 2012 maybe. I have some pairs that are pretty old now that I wear on the regular and they still hold up. But it's nice to have like different shapes, sizes, colors. So I've been trying to expand and do a whole pride flag range of earrings.
That is impressive that you've had earrings since like, well, that would be 12 years ago now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they've accidentally gone through the rain. I've accidentally worn them in the shower. Like, they're not that hard for me to like put back together if for whatever reason they come apart, but they do hold up pretty good. So I'm glad that I can like show proof of concept in that way. Oh yeah, I've had these for like ages. They're fine. They work.
That's wonderful being able to do that. Do you find like I know that God, I've lost count now. I think I have 16 or 17 flag designs for my stitching, but I feel like every year someone pops up and they're like, "Oh, you don't have such and such flag." And then
hmm
I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll make sure that flag's in next year." Like, do you end up running into the same kind of thing?
Constantly. And some of it is the limitations of the size because the earrings are like really tiny. So there's only so much detail, which is why I don't have something that's like the inclusive pride flag with the sort of like triangle on the side that's got the black, brown, and trans flag on it because I just don't have a way to do that without making it kind of large. But yeah, every year I feel like there's something I missed, whether it's one of the many, many identities under the like trans and non-binary umbrellas, because there's so many different subcategories of non-binary. Or if it's just something completely different that I've just not heard of, or something that's a little harder, like the bear flags or like the like leather flags or stuff like that, where it's like community based as well as like identity based.
Yeah, I find the biggest trick for me because like I see yours are 6 by 6 stitches and mine are 12 by 13 or 12 by 12. But it's just so hard to translate anything that's a symbol on a flag. So
hmm
like the two spirit flag with the feathers on it or the bear with the paw, like anything symbol like that is really hard to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's sort of where I have to go into, okay, I can use the colors, deconstruct them, but hopefully make them present in a way that makes it obvious what it is, to anyone who's like paying attention. Because again, 6 by 6 is not a very large amount of space. 8 by 8 is not a very large amount of space when it comes to like it has to sit on your ear and not, jab into your neck and all of that. But yeah, that's a thing where I think if I really wanted to, embroidery could maybe help me with some of those problems. It would just be a lot trickier to figure out how to do that if I'm not working on a hole punch canvas.
Yeah, keeping your sizes consistent might start getting a little trickier too,
Yeah,
especially if like you don't have a little template to draw out on everyone.
exactly. Yeah, a lot of it is just sort of I use a graph paper and throw some colors in there and see if it looks right and then try and translate that into like a working rough draft concept.
So, pivoting away from directly your art, are you a part of any fiber arts groups, either in person or online?
Yeah, so I sort of have been floating from a couple over the years. When I first started knitting, there was a local knitting group, and I was the youngest person by about 20 years. But it was really nice because they were all more than happy to share their expertise and share their advice and be like, oh, that's not actually a big deal like you think it is. And then there's several online groups that I'm part of. Some of them are just, Facebook groups where we share our work and stay in touch and inspire each other, and that's a nice source of community. And then some of them are groups groups where we're all working on the same thing, but in our own way, whether, the type of fabric or color or placement or whatever, but we're all working on the same exact thing. And we're doing it together as a group over the course of maybe like 10 months, a year, something like that. So those are really, really nice too, just to like recognize that this is a very solitary art where I have to sort of be head in hands, focus on the work, but it's nice to have that community of people to like check in with and just see, hey, you're doing this too. We're both working on it together. And there is a local nonprofit reuse center that does sells like upcycled, gently used art supplies, stuff that's been donated. And so every month or so they have like a local stitch and bitch where we all get together and work on our stuff and just chill. So I've been trying to go to that pretty regularly as well for that nice in-person time where we're all kind of focused on stuff, but we can still hang out and talk and it's acceptable to not be looking at each other the whole time.
Yeah, I know what you mean about solitary together. I never had thought about this before, but like one of my favorite things to do in the last couple of years has been to hang out with friends and stitch together. So we're not really looking at each other. We're just kind of chatting. Sometimes we're even just listening to a podcast and not talking to each other. And then I was like, oh, well, this is parallel plays.
Really, exactly. I'm like, can you come over and like focus on your own thing in silence while I focus on my own thing? And yeah, yeah, I have a friend coming over to knit and do the exact same with me. We're just gonna catch up and work on our stuff. But yeah, parallel play as a ADHD person as well. It's really important to have those systems. So I like being able to see what people do online, and the groups are nice, but there's really nothing to beat in person time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I know what you mean too about like being the youngest person in a knitting group. In my hometown, the group that I don't even remember how I got into this group because it wasn't like hosted at a store or anything. I was definitely the youngest person, and the only other person my age was somebody else's daughter who came to the group occasionally. But then I came to the town I live in now, well, the next town over. It's small country area where every town just kind of blends into the next one. And I started university late, so then suddenly I'm like one of the oldest people in the group because the knitting groups there are geared towards the university students, and I'm like a decade older than all of them.
Amazing. I love that. But I love that there's so many people now who are doing this in all different like age ranges. My sister was sort of inspired by my work and decided to pick up embroidery just apropos of nothing and then made a whole bunch of stuff and was suddenly like, I see why this takes forever and you sell it for what you sell it for. Because this took me forever. But yeah, I like seeing how so many people in so many different age ranges are all doing fiber art stuff together. I know during the pandemic the stores all kind of like everybody was picking over the stores for anything they could do that was like not electronic to work on while we're all shut in our houses for months. And so I noticed all the supplies, both the area where the supplies were, was getting a lot bigger, and the actual amount of supplies was actually shrinking because everybody grabbed them all. So that was just like, wow, there's suddenly been a boom of creativity and interest in this, like very typically, this is the thing that your grandma did, and this is the thing that like, the lost my train of thought, but like this is the like old timey thing, and it's
Hmm.
I'm glad it's getting a resurgence. I'm glad it's getting a like more feminist aware resurgence too. It's not just going back to the old things. It's also, hey, we're gonna put a spin on it. We're gonna make it snarky. We're gonna add swear words. Like we're gonna make it political. All of that.
Yeah, so we have Michael's like down the street from me. And not only was there just like, a lot of people getting into hobbies, so I'm sure that was part of it, but I know like the store manager fairly well, and she told me that part of the problem was, well, with like all the ports getting backed up, the ships were being directed to the States first and then to Canada. So that was why we were like not getting anything because I remember going into the yarn aisle and I was like, oh my God, look at all the holes. It was so strange.
Yeah, yeah, that's true too.
So the groups that you're in, have you found that any of them are like geared towards men or women in particular? Like, is it like, ladies knit night, or is anybody like, hey ladies, every time, you're all hanging out?
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm probably part of at least a dozen Facebook groups at this point, and so many of them are sort of explicitly for women. I know that there are a couple that are like meant for the queer community, meant for non-binary artists specifically, but a lot of them are like it's majority women in the group, it's majority like female presenting, at least from like, profile and name kind of thing in the group. And then occasionally you'll see a guy post about something he's working on and we're all like, "Oh yeah, your men can do it too." But there's a lot of like, "Hey ladies," and I'm just like, "Well, okay, if I gotta." But I've also seen, over the years there's been like a narrative shift in some of the groups where more queer artists are coming out and saying, "Hey, this doesn't really apply to me. Is there any way that we can like have a community discussion about it or amend rules or something to just be a little more inclusive on the offset and not just have to use gendered welcoming, opening phrases."
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing more of that and even seeing it like already in group rules now. So it'll say something
Hmm.
like, hey, no gendered, no hey ladies, hey guys, whatever. And it's so nice to see it popping up more because when I made the group, like the Facebook group, 5 years ago now, oh my God, has it been that long? It was definitely because there was a whole bunch of groups I was in and they were just constantly like, "Hey ladies." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna leave a snarky comment about how I have the answer, but you clearly don't want to talk to me."
Right, right. Yeah, there's only a couple ways you can really go about that, especially when it happens so frequently. Like I don't have the bandwidth to correct someone every single time on whatever the thing is, but it is really nice to see people taking initiative in terms of just making the space more inclusive by changing one or two words or replacing them with other words.
Yeah, and sometimes you can even just take the word out. Like there you can just say hi and there's less
Yeah.
effort on your end, period.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, "Hey artists, like that's the thing we have all in common here." So,
People who like to play with this pretty things.
mhm.
So, like, what do you like about the specific groups that you're in? Like you said, you're in a stitch along group, you're in just a general everybody hangs out, post their random things group. What has drawn you to those particular groups?
So with the stitch along groups, it's really about just the community and staying like just feel like I'm staying on some kind of schedule because it's all, I'm doing it for myself and there's really no like accountability except to myself. So it's nice to have those reminders and have those little things pop up that are like, "Yeah, you're doing this too and you can also share and be involved." And so I feel like I like the feeling of being part of a greater thing where like, yes, I'm making my one art will be done, but then look at this mosaic of everyone's art and it's all similar, unique stuff. So I really like that about that. And then I also just really like just seeing what people make because I feel like any person in any profession that's like any kind of creative or literary profession, like part of what you do, you have to like consume the thing that you're studying or that you're enjoying or that you're producing to like sort of give you inspiration or just ideas or just another perspective on the art style you're working on. So it's nice to see all those different perspectives and styles that are completely not like me, but might give me, "Hey, maybe I incorporate this new stitch into my work, or maybe I tried this new thing out that seemed maybe too complicated a couple years before." But just having that around me all the time is really it's a nice way to be able to ask questions of people who do the same things I do and get that camaraderie from people who aren't just like my own followers who maybe don't know the kind of work it takes or the kind of frustration you get when you're like stuck and you have to unpick like 2 hours worth of work and then redo it. So just having people who like get it is really nice, which is another reason why I'm glad that a lot more groups are becoming more aware of the non-binary fiber artists, just because I can be within the non-binary group of people who get it, but they are also artists who understand the artist struggle of things. So it's just I feel more seen in those groups because of the like connection to the work that I have. I don't know if that fully answered your question, but I tried.
Oh no, it totally does. And besides, if we wander off, that's fine. That's why I have no hard limit on how long we can talk. I'm just like, I expect these to go a certain time, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so like you were saying, like when you're in certain groups where they acknowledge non-binary artists, and then like you're like, oh, you understand, and also you understand the pain of unstitching 2 hours worth of work. Like, do you also find yourself more comfortable sharing certain work because those groups are specific, like, hey, we're not going to call everybody women here. Like, you can get away
Yeah,
with putting
yeah.
in things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know all groups have their own rules about what you can and can't share in terms of like if your work has profanity or nudity or suggestive whatever. But when I see that the groups are being more inclusive specifically of like my gender identity, it does make me feel more comfortable in sharing more of my work or more specific kinds of my work. The same as like when I go into a space and I'm like, oh, this space is like explicitly like pro-Palestine, for example, and is not going to tolerate, racism or whatever else, or, it's nice to like have a way to share works that I've done that feel not provocative is not the right word, but that get a reaction out of certain kinds of people. And if I know those people aren't going to be there, I'm going to feel more inclined to share that work. Specifically, like I have like a piece that says fuck Nazis on it. And so a lot of places they're like, well, you said the word fuck, so that's bad, and we're not going to let you do it. And I'm like, but you see what I'm saying? Like the piece is not just profanity, it's making a political statement as well as like a personal one. And so I have to be careful sometimes about maybe I don't want to be in this group if it's not going to let me say something like that, which should be like a universal statement. But yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable sharing personal anecdotes or other things when I see that spaces are inclusive of or primarily made up of other queer people.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like sometimes it just feels like your focus is in the wrong place when you're going to complain about the fact that I used the word fuck, as opposed to the fact that like I've made a political statement about like how Nazis should just all go somewhere and like, I don't know, go
Yeah,
live
yeah.
in an underground bunker and stay there for the rest of forever.
Yeah, the politeness politics don't really sit well with me. So just like, no, this is a bunch of nonsense. We can speak our minds here and be adults.
Yeah, 100%. And like how am I supposed to gently say this, you know? Like this is a thing that needs big words.
Right. It needs to be big, it needs to be bold, and it you can't really tiptoe around it. So yeah, it's really nice to like have those explicit spaces that are like, hey, we accept political work, but also we're like fundamentally like anti-racist, anti-transphobic, anti-sexist, whatever. So like don't that stuff's not allowed, but like you can just also say fuck.
Yeah, I tried to join a crochet Facebook group a while ago and it was like, oh, no politics. And I was like, so what if I put like a Black Lives Matter thing? Am I gonna get in trouble? And then like next
Right.
thing I knew, I couldn't find the Facebook group anymore. I was like, oh, they blocked me.
Yeah, you would think just kicking someone else enough, but they're like, no, we're gonna block you. Like, that's when you know
Yep.
that space is not meant for you, for sure. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise. But it's a hard pass for me when I see groups anymore that say no politics.
Hmm.
Unless it's for like a very, very specific type of like art that I'm doing where I would consider going into the space for like resources and then backing the heck out of it. I don't really tend to go into the more social groups unless they are like explicitly like welcoming of my gender identity, sexuality, like leftist political views, etc. So it can be really tricky to navigate the other ones without, at risk of getting myself blocked or banned or something.
Yeah, like I've seen a couple where they do say no politics, but they're specific, like we're not going to talk about who we're voting for or whatever, or like try
Right,
to pressure
right.
people to vote. And I'm like, that's cool, you know, like I get
Yeah,
not pressuring
yeah.
people, but like, yeah, generally no politics just means none of the things that actually impact my life can ever be talked about. And the biggest problem I have
Or
with this is
represented in art there.
yeah, exactly. But like the person who runs that page, without outing the page, actually lives local to me and has a really cute dog, and I'm annoyed because I just want to hug their dog every time I run into them.
Right, right. It's not the dog's fault. The dog's not being, whatever.
Exactly. So I just pretend that I don't notice that he's wearing the sweater with the logo on it and just play with his dog, with my dog.
There you go.
So we're gonna pivot a little bit again, and you have touched on this topic already. So do you use your art to express yourself in regards of your gender?
Yeah, so I like I said, I really like to wear my pride earrings because I have non-binary earrings, I have bi earrings, I have ace earrings, like all of those are very much part of my identity, but specifically the non-binary flag is less recognized than the trans flag and the bi flag or the pride flag or whatever. And so that's just like it's just a really nice way to be able to display my art but on my body and have that part of my identity be noticed but in a small way, because there are the people who go to pride who are like, yeah, I'm gonna pride and party and put the flag on my back and like I'm gonna be out and proud, and that's a wonderful thing, and I'm just like, I'm gonna stay inside and read a book and maybe like have a cup of hot chocolate and like pet a dog or something, because that's just can be really like mentally, emotionally overstimulating and overwhelming to go to sometimes. But yeah, I really enjoy making art that reflects my gender identity, and I really enjoy like showing it off when I'm able to.
Yeah, like I guess I'm an introvert for sure, but like the big pride party is something I enjoy, but it's definitely something that's wearing and it's hard for people. And I know that like that is a downside to a lot of prides is they don't take into consideration things that are like quieter and less rambunctious and
Yeah.
maybe don't include like people getting drunk because there's alcohol and stuff. So
Yeah, we have a huge pride event that happens in our area every year, and without fail, there's so much alcohol, there's so much drunkenness. I'm like, it's the middle of the day, it's also hot as hell. Like we're all gonna get dehydrated if we're not careful. There's no shade where we do it, unless you're under a tent. There's just no actual like tree shade or building shade. And so it's really nice to be able to have those smaller events that are like, let's go for a picnic instead of being at a big, huge, overwhelming, very loud event. Let's just have a picnic potluck where we all get together and hang out with our kids and our pets and whatever. Yeah, I tangent, lost track, but I agree with
no
you.
worries. Yeah, like the big pride near us is in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm an hour from there. And they have been trying to be like more inclusive in the parade, so they've like partnered with the local library that has this weird overhang room. I don't even know what you call it, but like the room juts out from the front of the building and it's all windows. So like that's like their quiet sensory calmed space, which is really nice so that you can go watch the parade and not be in a bunch of like a huge noisy crowd.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was great that they did that. And I'm part of the Pride where I live now. And that's something we're trying to do too, is like make sure there's inclusiveness. And one of the towns that we work with, because like I said, it's all small towns, we're all really close together. One of the towns we work with actually just has a box of sensory toys that you can borrow for events and stuff. So we always like, we're trying to get those and bring them to our events so people have something to like fiddle with and distract themselves if they need to.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm my local pride is still trying to like, I'm still at the point of, can we not have cops there? But it would be really nice to have somewhere quieter and a little bit more relaxed than the current situation that it's at. But it's definitely something to think about for sure.
Yeah, I was semi involved in our pride last year, which was the first pride, like the first big pride in this area. Big. But like I wasn't involved with like the bigger event. And so I didn't know what was happening behind the scenes there. And I found out that like most of the security guards that we had hired were all like queer people themselves. And I was like, oh, that's cool. How did you all manage
Yeah.
that? Like I love that. So I guess like we're gonna try and get like the same security guards and stuff back this year for like the
Yeah.
events we feel would need them. But
Yeah, that's
thankfully,
awesome.
like when we have had police presence around, because like we had a counter protest to people protesting a
Sure.
drag story time.
Yeah, we always get those.
Yeah, the police have been respectful and like stayed away. So, do you use your art to like express yourself in any other way? Like, do you have, stitch on your clothes or anything, or like make patches for your bags?
Yeah, so I haven't made a ton of patches, but I have made a ton of like pins that you can just clip onto things. I think patches are like the next step forward from that. But I do like to express myself a lot with those kinds of things too. Like a lot of my art is really just about what I'm interested in at the time or in general. So there's a lot of like, here's some literary stuff or here's some like nature stuff or whatever. But yeah, I've made lots of different types of pens. So both like pride pens that are maybe about this big, they're not very large. I have made a lot of like video game related art, Pokemon or, something from Mario or Pac-Man or whatever. Cause again, it's all pixels. It's really easy to stitch. It just kind of comes with the territory. And then I have actually embroidered a pair of pants, jeans, where I did this really nice neon color lace embroidered, I don't know how to describe it because I'm learning all the terminology, but around the belt loops themselves, like basically in between the stitching on the belt loops and then also on the pockets. I was able to like weave the thread in and out with them and make some fun little patterns and stuff like that. Sadly, the pants don't fit me, which I only learned after I did them, but they fit my sister perfect. So I guess that's gonna be her Christmas present. But yeah, I have been wanting to. That's like one of my next things is I want to branch out and do more things on clothing or do more things on my jacket or my backpack or something like that. It's just a matter of learning the skills to do it. But I definitely like to wear my pins and express myself that way. I used to work at a like a arcade, so I'd have a ball cap, and I just have a bunch of pins all around the ball cap that were related to the job. So it was great.
Yeah, so you're saying like you had a bunch of pins on your hat, and all I can think of is it TGI Fridays? We don't have those up here, so like I can't remember, but there's like some restaurant chain where you're supposed to wear all your bling on your vest or whatever.
No, I haven't been to a TGI Fridays ever, so I don't know. But no, it was a bar arcade, so there was a lot of really nerdy stuff all around me. So I was like, well, I might as well look the part and put all this on my hat too.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm glad your sister can at least wear your pants, but I feel bad that like you put all this effort in for you and it didn't work out.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it was practice also. Like I'm definitely gonna be doing stuff on my own clothes. I need to patch up some stuff, so I kind of want to do a little embroidery while I'm already in there patching it.
Yeah, like that like sashiko mending kind of vibe.
Where it's really visible.
Yeah, I tried doing weaving in my hoodie and it's okay. It's okay. And then I reinforced the back with a little piece of fabric with some iron on to like glue on it. So if you flip the hoodie pocket inside out, there's just a little secret kitty nose inside my pocket now.
I love that.
What would be like your dream project for doing your own clothes then? Like what would you really want to do? Like an entire shirt, a vest, a coat, just do pants
Ooh.
again?
Honestly, honestly, I think if I had the time and the skills and the effort, I think it would be really fun to work on like a dress, like an A-line dress, where I've got quite a bit of like waist down, like skirt type material to go with, because I'd love to embroider lots of like flowers on it, and maybe do like a design with the flowers, where either it's trailing down the dress in sort of like a vine type deal or something like that. But I think that would be a lot of fun and really expressive because I do tend to like wearing like dresses and skirts just because they're comfortable as heck. And it'd be really nice to like to do that with them. But I also think the material would be easier to work with maybe than trying to stitch through denim. I feel like that's the hard part for me is I have to stitch through denim and it's tricky even with the best of needles. I've broken more than a few on them. But yeah, I'd love to do a dress. I'd love to like do something with the neckline and the shoulders and the bodice, all of it. That'd be really fun. Add some beads in there.
Yeah, there's some really nice embroidered dresses that follow the cut in a really good way that really emphasizes it. And I'm just amazed at that work. But then, like, you put beads on, and I'm like, but how do you wash it? It's a lot of fabric to wash by hand.
Yeah, that's the thing is like it's like yeah, do I dry clean it? Do I just, hand basically like hand wash? And that's the other thing is I'm terrified of washing my pieces when I'm done with them, even the ones where I've spent a year and change working on them so I know they've got like oils like regardless of how many times I wash my hands, but I'm just terrified the colors are going to bleed. And after I put an hour, a year plus of work into something, I don't want to risk ruining it. So I have to like, I don't know, learn more tools to get over my fear of washing the pieces. Where all these old ladies are like, just wash it. It's fine. Just use some Dawn soap and just put it in there in a little bucket and just wash it real easy and hang dry it or whatever. And I'm like, this is scary. I can't do this.
Oh, I completely understand. One of my earliest pieces was done with some cheap thread and the red bled, and I still have it. And I don't
Yep.
know if like the dye is permanently soaked into where it is now, but I don't know. Maybe one day I'll redo it. But you can get like, like dryer sheets. You can get something similar to those that go in your water called color catchers, and like they're supposed to absorb all
Hmm.
the dyes.
Okay, I will definitely have to look into that, especially now that I'm doing more embroidery with things that are wearable and not just pieces I'm gonna put on the wall and hope the sun doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I always give mine, like, I don't wash them unless there's a really distinct line where, like, my hand was holding the hoop or something. And then I'll get the toothbrush out and scrub the heck out of that fabric there. But yeah, everything just gets like a soap and try to do with like lukewarm water so it's not too warm to pull the dye out and then throw in a color catcher and it's worked fine so far.
Okay, good to know. See, this is why I'm part of all these groups and whatnot, because I'm constantly learning tricks and techniques and whatever. When I first started, I was like, I don't need something to hold my needle because I will be holding my needle. And so I went about 10 years without any needle catchers. And then I realized, oh, this is important. I need these really bad. And they've changed my life and I can't do a project without them now.
Yeah, I technically have a needle minder, but it lives in my thread box. So all of my loose needles just get attached to it in there.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
works.
I mean, hey, it's doing its job. It's holding the needles.
Yeah, my biggest problem was when I went to buy it, and again, this is like 5+ years ago, on Etsy, there just weren't a lot of them selling in Canada. And then, of course, the shipping is just
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I could make a whole side business out of making those.
Oh, you 100% can.
I was like, I can't start because then I need a whole other set of tools and it's just no, I don't need that.
It's not that many tools. You just buy pre-made pins and cut the back off and grind it a little, and then some.
True. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, but it's also
I'm
just
also not
work.
helping you.
No.
Into the next question.
Hmm.
Do you feel like your art or the doing of your art interplays with your gender or gender expression? An example, many fiber arts have a social identity as being for women, either through being a domestic practice that women did, such as like knitting sweaters and stuff like that for the family, or a higher class women's pastime, such as like tatting and black work was an example that you had a lot of time back in the old days to work on things.
The question was, sorry, repeat your question.
Yeah, sorry, that was a lot of chatter after the question. Do you feel like your art or the doing of your art interplays with your gender or gender expression? So like for example, do you feel like by doing your art you are affirming or like maybe like you're affirming your gender identity or expression, or maybe like it's working against you in some way?
So I don't think it works against me. I think really the part where it feels like it's being reduced down to women's work for me is when I'm doing it in public and someone comes up and they're like, "Oh, I like your knitting. I like your sewing." And I'm just like, "Yes, those are also things you do with your hands that women have done in the past." But for me, I think it's pretty affirming of my identity to do it, or it's neutral, but that's a really good question. I like to stitch in a lot of places that aren't my home. I used to work at a bar, so I'd get off work and have a single beer and like stitch for 3 hours to the point where I do that so often they were like, "Oh, it's just that girl with the art stuff, you know?" And so it was just like, I'm gonna do this in not a typical like feminine setting or in a place where people would expect that kind of work to be done, or like on the bus or just out in public at work, whatever. But I feel like it's pretty affirming of who I am to do it when I think about it in those terms. Otherwise, I'm a person who does stuff. And I don't really think about it, but I do think it's pretty affirming and I like how it makes me feel connected to, like, yes, I'm non-binary. Yes, I'm perceived as a woman. To an extent, I identify as a non-binary woman, so there's like the two aspects, but it feels like I'm tapping into something that's more than just me as well. Like, again, the history of women who have done this, but also the fact that I make subversive pieces or I make gender affirming pieces or stuff like that, where I'm like, yeah, I'm reclaiming this. I'm making this fit me rather than me fitting into a box in order to do it. So I'm bringing it out of the box so that I can do whatever I want with it. So for me, I think that's very affirming, and when I realized that my aunt actually did a lot of stitching. Like my mom and my aunt don't talk, so I had no idea that she was also like making quilts and embroidering and whatever until many, many years after I started. And it was like, well, this is a nice way to like feel connected to my family in a way that I've never have before. And it's hard for me to feel connected to my family a lot of the time. So but yeah, I think it's pretty affirming of my identity to be able to take something that has been put into a box and then take both it and myself out of the box to work on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean because sometimes I'm like, oh, if I'm out with this stuff, things people are going to like assume that I'm a girl, but also they're probably going to do that anyways, so screw you, I'm going to do it because I know that like
Yeah,
even when I'm seen as a girl, I'm not seen as a femme girl, so
right, right.
but it's really nice that it helps you feel connected to your family. My family has almost no history of doing like anything. Like my mom knit for babies when they showed up, and that was for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years of my young childhood. I remember her doing this, and then she just never picked up needles again. That was it. She just wanted to knit like
Yeah.
the little layette sets.
Yeah, yeah. My mom said one time she tried cross-stitching Christmas cards for everybody and she never tried again because it was just so much work. And it was like years before I was ever born. But it was like, oh, I'm learning things about myself through this art form that I'd picked up apropos of literally nothing with no one encouraging me. So it's just been nice to like discover things about myself along the way as well.
Do you mind me asking what other kinds of things you've discovered, like aside from that connection to your aunt that you didn't know that well?
So part of it is like I have always been a rather impatient person, and so in picking up cross stitch, one of several ways I've been able to like hone my patience and hone my like being able to sit with a problem and not let it overwhelm me. So just being able to like recognize, oh, hey, I can actually evolve as a person through my art and not just my art's getting better, but also I'm getting better. So I really liked that about it. And then just the like very meditative state that cross stitch puts me in or embroidery puts me in, especially when it's like I'm just gonna sit and focus on this and I don't have TV or music or anything. It's just me and the stuff. And it really like opens my brain up and allows me to process things, whether it's upsetting or good things or bad or whatever. But it's just helped me feel more like grounded and centered. And I think that's what I mean about like feeling more connected, learning more about myself, just giving me the mental space and emotional space to process when a lot of other things either are just a distraction, an escape, or could potentially make it worse, whatever headspace I'm in.
I know that it like that kind of grounds you and calms you thing can also work for other people because like you, I cross-stitched in class when I was in university. And the first time I did it, a couple of students across from me, one who was like big football player dude too, were like, "Oh, it's really nice watching you cross-stitch. Like it's really calming and I just kind of like relaxed watching
Yeah.
your hands move."
Yeah, I do get that, especially in public places. They're like, oh, I don't mean to stare. I just couldn't help but like pay attention to what you're doing because it's just really fascinating. Because at this point, it's sort of like I'm out of rhythm. I'm like seasoned with it. So I can hold a conversation and do it at the same time for the most part. But it's really rewarding to see that other people are also getting that very sort of meditative feeling from just by proxy doing it. And it's a nice icebreaker where the focus is on the work and not necessarily on me, and that's kind of how I like it sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes that focus on my work and not on me has been a little unnerving because, like, I will work on pride things in public, and then people are like, "What are you working on?" And I'm like, how much do I give
Yeah,
you details?"
yeah, that's another thing too, is like just being mindful of like what I'm working on where. 'Cause they're definitely like I probably wouldn't make my fuck Nazis piece just about anywhere, even though it's small and I can hide it in my hand. There's a lot of places where I'd be less comfortable working on pride pieces or less comfortable working on like anti-fascist pieces, just because I live in a military town. And so there's a lot of right wing people here. There's a lot of military pro America people here. But yeah, it can be a double-edged sword. But I think I've gotten to the point where the stuff that I'm doing, I'm more comfortable doing it out in public now. Or I also just give way less of a shit now of what people think.
Okay, so related to like, oh, military town, right wing kind of vibe, do you find you're also getting a little more comfortable because like if you look at your Instagram, you're selling your stuff, you're putting it out there with your face attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're already doing it there, do you find that like you're feeling more comfortable too because you're like, ah, it's already out here.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have, business cards with my name on it and a QR code and all that fun stuff. But yeah, having the visibility of I have my pieces in two different local stores that are both pretty explicitly like queer friendly, queer run, that kind of thing. And then I have plans to have them a couple more things in a couple more places, but then also being visible at events and tabling in places and not just for Pride Month, not just for Women's History Month or whatever. But there is a sense of like I have a following of people who genuinely care about the work that I do and also me by proxy. And so there's a lot of confidence instilled in that when you're like, yeah, there's like a couple hundred people who have my back, even if it's just you're across the country or, in the next state or whatever. But it's a bit of a confidence booster to know that people like what you're making, they like that you're making stuff and they want to like support that, whether it's materially or send good vibes if something weird happens or whatever. It's also given me like I had to think a lot when I first started making art and putting it for sale is, do I want to have my name on things, do I want to have my face on things? Like, as a non-binary artist, like, yes, I'm white and I have quite a bit of privilege there, but there's other aspects where I am absolutely marginalized. And so it's definitely been good to like when I decided to take the step of, yeah, I'm going to use my name, I'll use my face, that kind of thing, knowing that I have people who are going to back me up for doing so or for posting something that is like explicitly like fuck Nazis or I support Palestine or like whatever it is. So it gives you that more boldness to just be out in public and be a bit more open with my identity, with the stuff I'm working on, and yeah, to not care as much about what people think. But it's also nice that there have been a lot of queer owned, queer run safe spaces that are specifically built up for people like me in our local like neighborhood and community. So we can just go and hang out there if we want to and work on stuff there. And like no one will bat an eye because it's the norm. So yeah, it's been really nice to just not have that fear of what people are going to think. As a very naturally anxious person, it's nice to have a lot less of that. Oh God, what do they think? And like, no, I'm minding my own business, and you can mind your own business too.
I'm glad that you're finding a space of comfort with that with your art too, because if we're gonna do our art, it fulfills us in some way. So to a certain extent, the idea that it's not well received is always going to be awkward because all art is going to
Sure.
be some part of you. And then when you attach it
Yeah.
to some part of you,
Yeah, yeah, especially when it's a more personal thing, and not just like I made this because it's nice, but like I made this and it represents some part of my identity or interests or expression or whatever. But also like just practicing caring less about what people think about me or my art, because if they don't like it, I've had to learn, well, maybe my art's not for everyone. I already know that, whether it's aesthetics or its content, what it's saying as a piece. But I've definitely had to learn that like not to undervalue my work, not to undersell myself. If it's not for them, it's not for them, and that's okay and doesn't have any reflection on me.
it's really hard when you make something that it's like, do you not like it because you're a bigot or because it's just not your niche? Because even queer people don't always necessarily want pride flags on their stuff, which is cool. Like you don't
Exactly.
have to fly colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what inspires you to either to make the things that you've decided to make or just to make, period?
I mean, I have a compulsive need to do stuff with my hands all the time. So part of it is like I just gotta, it's my fidget. That's how I fidget is I make art. And so that's just the easy way to put it. But the question was like what like inspires me to make what I make?
Yeah, like what inspires you, like either the choices of what you make, you said you make like feminist things and then like queer things, or just like what inspires you to make, period. Why do you feel good making? Like what does it do for you? Does something lean you that way? Like again, with that connection to other people that you were getting.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff I made well before I started making for selling reasons was just as gifts for friends. And so I'm the kind of person where I don't get a gift for every single person, but if I see something where I'm like that's them, then I'll go ahead and get it kind of thing. And it's the same with art where I'm like, "Oh, I see that piece and I love it. for this person. So I'm going to make it for this person. And then they're lucky enough to get a handmade piece from me that year. And so a lot of it is like seeing, like, I like bringing joy to other people. So finding a thing that I know that they would really like and making it for them as a labor of love, also because I'm poor. I've got time. I don't have a whole lot of money or anything else. So yeah, part of it is being able to bring joy to other people through something that's very like personal and unique for them. Part of it is seeing like whatever my special interest is at the time. So when I got really into black work, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do black work everything and just look up everything black work I can think of. Like for a couple of years straight, it was just that's what I want to do. And being able to like find things that represent my interests or identity or whatever that are also black work, I will do that until I got tired of it. And then just like whatever's happening in the world, that's another thing is it could be political, it could be social, it could be media related. So something that's topical, whatever my brain is bouncing off of, I'll want to make something to represent it, to like show off my love for that thing. And part of it is like the community groups and the community spaces I'm in. It's really nice to be able to bounce that off while it's still like fresh in my mind. I made a piece that was a Barbie Oppenheimer crossover right when that whole thing happened. And it was like a pink mushroom cloud on a black background that had the Barbie head inside the mushroom cloud. It was amazing. But I just really wanted to play with all the bright pink colors because I didn't have any bright pink anything. So I was like, ooh, this new thing that I got, I want to play with it and do a bunch with it before I get tired of it. There's a whole lot of reasons why I make things, but primarily I make things just because it looks really fun to do. Maybe it incorporates a new stitch that I learned, or I went to an exhibit at the local museum last year and there was an exhibit, a whole entire area that this woman did embroidery on like non-traditional things. So she took a bunch of photographs of like urban spaces and then embroidered flowers and bushes and plants and trees all over it. And it was really cool to be like, oh, this is a photograph. And she just poked a bunch of holes in it and made art. Or like created a diorama of what like the art was like nature taking over some super urban like capital city whatever. And so seeing that, I was like, ooh, I want to try that. So I went and got a random photograph from a thrift store of someone sitting outside on the corner of their house where there's like some brick overlay and then there's like a little garden and the house is behind that. And I went and just like embroidered the flowers and the bushes in the picture, but I did it so well that you have to tilt the photograph to be able to see where the glossiness of the photograph is and you can see the thread on it. But if you are looking straight at it, you wouldn't know there's thread on it at all. So it was like, this is just a cool thing. I was inspired by someone to try out, and now I'm going to try it out. And I did, and it wasn't my thing, so I didn't keep doing it. But sometimes I just get stuck on something like black work and just want to explore it until I'm tired of it, until my brain says, okay, new thing now.
I know what you mean about your special interest because it surprised everybody that I was like, I want to go see the Barbie movie. And people kept asking me, they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I want to go. And like, I had purposely not watched anything. There were no trailers or nothing. I saw a few things where like men are angry at the Barbie movie. Here are quotes from them or whatever that makes it sound like really cool.
Yeah,
But I was like, I just
yeah.
I just want to go to the Barbie movie. And I went and Ken became my special interest. So I listened to the song every day for 3 months straight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm like, I've seen the Barbie movie a whole bunch. Now I'm like, okay, it's time to retire it, but it's because I've seen it like 8 times, so I'm good for next year. But yeah, it's like I love consuming different types of media. So, if it's Pokemon video games or if it's shows where I'm like, I really like this show, I want to make something for this character, and also there's like a dearth of stuff for this thing that I love, so I want to create and produce more things to fill that hole so other people can enjoy it. So it's like that too, And rewatching Adventure Time. So I'm like, oh, I want to make another little BMO or something like that. Just because it's like this is in my head. It's been living in my head for months and I want to do something about it and get it out.
I have that thing sometimes too where you're just like so into something. It's like until I actually do something about this, it will just live rent free in my head.
Yep. Yep.
So tell me, what's your favorite thing you've made so far, no matter what it is? And I know it's a hard question, so like all the time in the world to think about it.
Sure, sure. I would say my favorite thing I've ever made, it's probably I have this hummingbird piece that I made in 2020, and the artist is this really lovely Italian lady. I think she's either Italian or I'm gonna be really sad if I got this wrong. She's either Italian or Russian. I cannot remember. It's because she goes by the handle Max Stitch. But her name is Irina, and the last name starts with a K, and I cannot pronounce it. I can't remember if she's Italian or she's Russian. But there's a very large black work piece that I made in 2020 shortly after a pandemic hit and everything shut down. And it's very large. It's one of the biggest pieces I've ever made, but it's a hummingbird drinking out of a flower. And then there's this really beautiful black work background. But the flower and the background and everything except the hummingbird is black work. And it's like it's pretty big. It's pretty big. And so that took me about 3 months. And I was doing that in between going to Black Lives Matter protests every other day and, marching in the streets. And then I come home and do a bunch of art. So I'd say that's probably my favorite piece I've ever worked on, to the point where I actually remade it last year, but on a multicolored background that was like a dyed fabric. So I wanted to do it again, but I wanted to change something about it. So I changed the fabric and made it this like rainbow pastel kind of thing. So that's probably my favorite thing I've ever made.
Yeah, I saw that when I was scrolling through your Instagram and I was like, oh, I want to do something like this now.
It's so intricate. There's so many moving parts to it. It's very ornate. There's some pieces that are just do this pattern endlessly and repeatedly. And then there's some parts that are like you have to poke a needle in this one hole like 10 different times to go 6 different ways to get the effect you want. And it's very like can be a little overwhelming. So it's one of those pieces where if I'm feeling the challenge, I'm gonna go for the hard part. And if I'm not, I'm just gonna do that really easy background fill.
That's nice that it's got like the varying levels of difficulty, so it kind of feeds you no matter what kind of day you're having.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was scrolling down, I was like looking at it and thinking, I really need to try something like this very bold, bright pop of the hummingbird with all of the black lines around it was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing with black work that I really want to try is I've seen a lot of more, I don't know, experienced artists, which sounds weird. I've been doing this 14 years, I don't feel experienced, but they'll take a black work pattern and then they'll go and overlay like a silhouette or something on top of it, and it's still all black work. The black work hasn't changed, the colors changed of the thread. So they actually end up putting an image inside whatever the black work is because they're just simply altering the color of the thread and the way it moves. And so I'd love to do something like that at some point as well. But again, it feels like an advanced skill I haven't graduated to yet.
There's an artist that I follow who does that with like Pokemon characters. So I made a Raichu, which is number one best boy. Like, I'm sorry, don't care. Raichu is the best and has been since the first two games. But yeah, no, I made myself a little Raichu so that I can hang it up on my wall because I just have a collection of Raichu stuff. Like I have a shelf just covered in Raichu, and then we took like molding strips and cut them down. So there's this piece between like my doorway in the room and then the closet doors that's not very big. I used them to make little shelves down the edge since they had the ridge, and like that's just got my Raichu card collection now.
Yes, my friend does that, but she hers is Bulbasaur. So she's got a whole wall of nothing but Bulbasaur plushies and figurines and art, and so I've made her a Bulbasaur too, of course.
Of course. And okay, I have to admit, Bulbasaur is also number one good boy because he's literally number one in in like the
He
original
is, but
decks.
Charmander's the best. Sorry.
I always said Bulbasaur was like easy mode and Charmander was like hard mode when you play through at the start.
Absolutely, because there's so few fire Pokemon. But I love Charmander. I don't care about Charizard. I think he's overhyped, but Charmander, he's my boy.
Charmander, Charizard, I'm good with Charmeleon and he's okay. All right, so that wraps up all the questions I have for you. Is there anything else that like you'd like to add into the conversation that kind of popped up for you that I didn't ask about or go into depth about?
I don't think so. I really appreciate the opportunity to like talk to you about all of this. That's been really nice. It's not often that I get to talk to another artist about the art, and among other things too, but usually when I talk about my art, I have to sort of make it so that people understand me because or just heavily simplify what I'm saying just so that I can relate to people who don't know what I do. But no, this has been a really wonderful time, and I've really appreciated talking with you about all things gender and fiber art.
I'm glad that this has been a good time for you because I am also in this. I will talk about these things forever. Literally, my undergrad thesis was just about art and gender identity or sexuality and the overlap. You might have seen like the meme. It's from Arthur and it says, "Why is all your art so fucking gay? Because I'm gay, you asshole." And that was the name of my thesis.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that.
I asked her, I was like, can I name, I don't know what to name my thesis. I'm just gonna go with this. And she's like, I don't see the problem. We all looked at her and were like, Zelda, can you read the words on the screen? Because she was an older lady, like she was ready to retire, right? And she looks at it and she's like, yeah, I don't see a problem with it. I'm like, yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The only thesis I've ever had to write was in high school, and it was so I could graduate, and it was a religious school, so it was a weird thesis. So I did it on the internet.
Fair. Yeah. Religion can be like really fascinating from an anthropological point of view, but I
Sure,
assume that
sure. But not when you're steeped in it.
yeah, I was gonna say, I assume you're talking about a Catholic school, and that's slightly different than like studying
Yeah,
it from the
yeah,
outside.
not Catholic, but certainly fundamentalist Christian. So, yeah, we've come a long way.
Well, at least you found something interesting to do your thesis about.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was like, people connecting on the internet. I can do that one. I can bullshit a lot on that topic. So I'm gonna do that and not something that's way more religious in nature automatically. So that was how I got through it.
Fair. So, where can people find you on the internet if they want to look at your art?
So I am on Facebook. My public Facebook profile is open to follows and friend requests and stuff like that. It's Katherine Kaywinnet. My Instagram handle is a thread in time, and you can look me up that way. There are underscores between all the words, but I don't think it really matters as much if you're just searching for me on Instagram. But I'm under there as Kaywinnet Creations. And I do have an Etsy store, which is linked on my Instagram and my Facebook profile. It's currently inactive because I have a lot of issues with how Etsy has been running things and how oversaturated it's gotten with a lot of third-party sellers and bots and whatever. But we'll see about, creating another store to sell things because people seem to respond to the work and I want to be able to provide it. And also, I need to make room in my house so I can make more stuff. I'm just like, please buy it. I've actually enjoyed this for quite a many years now. So, take it off my hands and I'll make more. But yes, Facebook and Instagram are my primary vehicles for sharing my work. And you can always see stuff on there. And I'm also always open to getting questions or messages about, hey, can you do this? Or hey, I saw this thing. Can you make something like this? Or hey, I had this harebrained idea. Is it possible? So that's always a fun time. But yes, you can find me on social media and follow me. That'd be awesome.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much. And listeners, if you'd like to find FiberNB on the internet, I'm on Instagram under the username FiberNB. That's FiberEnby. And if you want to email me, it's again fibernb@gmail.com. I have a link tree in the bio of my Instagram, and that's Linktree. So it's linktr period ee/FiberMB. And on there, you can find either submission forms to submit for yourself or a suggestion for somebody else that you'd love for me to interview for the podcast, or if you're interested in having yourself interviewed. And we have a Coffee. I don't know how to freaking pronounce that. I know it's supposed to be like coffee, but it doesn't look like it to
Coffee?
me. Yeah, it's supposed to be, but it's
Yeah.
Kofi. Yeah.
Ko-fi? Yeah, Kofi.
But yeah, that's at kofi.com/FiberMB, and look forward to seeing everybody in the next episode.